What's going on, y'all? This Pedo back with another book review. Today we doing Be Useful by Arnold Schwarzenegger. This was a dope book, a dope read. A lot of things I didn't know about Arnold, which is always the case when I'm reading these books. I'm always learning something new. But it also gave me a lot more respect for Arnold than I had before. You see the politician, you see the actor, you see all these things. But once you really get into his life and start learning a lot about him, you gain a lot more respect for him as a man. And I know people had these opinions on what he did and what he didn't do, but this is strictly about the book and what are things that he talked about in the book. I'm not going to get anything outside of that because I can't speak on things that I don't know as much of. I'm only speaking on what's in the book. So this is Pedo back with another book review, Be Useful by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let's get it. So in the book, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Be Useful, talks about the toll that being a politician takes on a body. And to hear this coming from somebody that takes a body to extreme lengths was wild to me. Like reading this book and you starting to get an understanding of how people take other people's professions for granted until you actually get in that profession. And then you start to have a better understanding and a better appreciation of what people actually go through and learn. And just to hear him say how much of a toll it took on his body was wild to me, especially when you see the before and after pictures of people when they become president or governor to when they finish. It's like a wild difference of how much of a toll it actually takes. And I know it's different from lifting weights and I know it's different from acting, but still for somebody that takes their body from one extreme to another to say the difficult challenges that they obtain in this particular profession was wild. And you have a lot more at stake when you are a politician. You have people actually counting on you, but it still was wild to hear how difficult it actually is being a politician. Another thing in Be Useful, the book by Arnold Schwarzenegger, he talked about was how this is technically like one of the best times in human history. Like it's less depression, it's less sickness, it's less disease than it's ever been. Everybody is less oppressed. It's more money, it's more education, it's more opportunities than it's ever been. And yet still people feel hopeless and more unseen than they ever have. And I got a theory. I feel like this is why people gravitate towards podcasts as much as they do now. Because you can find your circle, you can find your family, you can find the people that speaks to you specifically. And people want to feel more connected than we ever have. That was one of the better things about before, because it wasn't so much social media. So you didn't have to hide or could hide behind a camera as much or social media as much. You actually had to go out and intertwine with people and get to know people if you wanted to be around and find your circle. So that's like one of the biggest difference he was speaking on, which I thought was a good point, though. But we do have to start getting out more, getting more sun and, eating better, doing better and getting out the house more. And I feel like we'll be a lot more happier as a people. One of the main things Arnold talked about in his book was having a clear vision of what you want to do. And he was talking about finding that love that like you had as a child and channel that into your life today. Finding out what makes you happy, finding out what gives you that drive, that gives you that ambition, that really makes you want to strive towards something. And he also talked about having a broad vision of where you want to go and how you want to get there. He said because he always wanted to come to America, but he didn't know how it will play out, how it would turn out. He just was excited about moving here. And that excitement led him to everything that he is today. But he did talk about having a broad vision about which way you want to go and how you want to go and how you want to get there. Because if you're looking at things like you could be fine-tuned and locked into one particular purpose or one particular phase, that's fine. But sometimes there's different places that you may end up falling if you don't reach your destination. And I know a lot of people talk about that, like don't have a plan B or C and stuff like that. And I get that and I understand that. But just speaking specifically about what he talked about in his book is having a broad vision of where you're trying to go so you can still be amongst the place that you want to be instead of nowhere near it, which I thought was dope. Another thing that Arnold Schwarzenegger talked about in his book, Be Useful, he talked about how great James Cameron was with all of the movies and how he paid so much attention to details of everything that he was trying to accomplish and was trying to get everything as correct as possible. And he talked about how he did not want how Arnold did not want to play the villain in the Terminator. He kept saying he was the good guy. He wanted to be the hero. That's still the path that he wanted to go. But having that broader vision led him to trust James Cameron and say, okay, I'll play the villain, which turned out to be one of the greatest movies of all times. But the significance of that is having that broader vision, being open to being able to work, because everything you think and how you feel ain't always the best option or the correct way, because we have our own ideas and own thoughts. But he trusted James Cameron, and it turned out to be one of the greatest things that he ever did. So again, going back to having that broader vision and your goals and understanding and being adaptable to whatever you're getting yourself into. Another thing that Arnold talked about and Be Useful was like how many people in Hollywood are successful these days have been rejected 1,000 times. He talked about Harry Potter was rejected like 12 times. He talked about Todd McFarlane was denied over 300 times. He talked about The Godfather, the producer that produced The Godfather was rejected multiple times. The founder of Airbnb was rejected like 7 times. And he went into so many different people that's been rejected and denied and doors closed on so many different times. And these people are billionaires and millionaires and wildly successful. And don't let that stop you. Don't let that be a way to make you quit just because you've been denied 1 time, but denied 2 times. And I'm a person that does that as well. And I need to work on that, because sometimes if things ain't working, I'd be like, I ain't doing it. Like it was one point in time, honestly, that I was going to stop this. Like I wasn't going to do no more book reviews. It wasn't going the way that I wanted to go, and I was ready to give up on it. But the people around me checked me, kept me in check. Like, yo, you're doing a good thing. Don't stop. Keep pushing and keep working towards where you want to go. And that's what I'm going to do. But that's one thing that I thought was amazing in this book that Arnold talked about, was not giving up just because it don't work initially. Keep pushing. Okay, one of the funny things, it's not even funny because it was a horrible time, but if you look at it from my perspective, you may find humor in it. But he talked about how during the pandemic, California had ran out of masks and nobody could get a hold of masks during the pandemic. So he couldn't believe how unprepared the government was in such a crazy time. They could not get supplies. And he was just shocked, man. So him himself start calling around to different places trying to get masks. And of all places, he called Alibaba and ordered masks for the whole state of California. But I just thought it was hilarious, because it was like, bro, the government is unprepared. What am I going to do? He going to call around. And he called one of the most unlikely sources that was like, yeah, we got all the masks you need. And it's just wild, because he said that's why people hate the government, because sometimes it could be so unprepared, so not ready to be in place for things that's going on, and people there for people in their needs. And him being in that space let him see a different side of it that sometimes we don't see, where people just be a little incompetent in their position. And that's just kind of how it is nowadays. People be getting put in place that they're not prepared for, or not, expecting the worst. And when the worst comes, we kind of be in trouble. And I'm pretty sure we all are a victim of that in some way, shape, or form in our lives. And more of the story is just we got to be more prepared for the worst times to come and being on our job a little bit better. That's all. In the book, Be Useful, Arnold Schwarzenegger talked about having a positive mindset and outlook on life and not being a victim. I've read this book the other day called The More Complete Beast. And in that book, he talked about the serpent is only wicked in the eyes of the prey. And I love that quote so much, because I cannot stand people that play victim all the time. Everything is everybody else's fault. Don't want to take any accountability. Don't want to look within. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I got everything all figured out. I'm trying to figure it out myself. But I definitely thought this part of the book, when he talked about not having that victim mindset and having a positive outlook on everything that happens, because you can look at things and manifest it and turn it into something beautiful. Because a lot of times when we learn lessons and when something bad happened, it just turned into a lesson and we end up learning from it. So it's not always somebody out to get you. Just because somebody opposes you or stand on the other side does not make them inherently evil. So we got to get out of that place and that mindset. Just because somebody stand on the opposite side does not mean they out to get you. Just because somebody is your opponent doesn't mean they inherently evil. Sometimes people trying to get it just like you trying to get it. So that's all it is, man. But I just love that part of the book when he talked about that. One thing that Arnold talked about, just continuing from the topic of playing victim, was how his dad used to come home and beat the brakes off of him and his brother. And he would never support any of his dreams, any of his visions or anything, and how abusive and horrible his dad was. And the reason why that's significant is because he did not allow that to stop him from chasing his dreams. He did not allow that to stop him from pushing forward. He didn't allow that to be the end of him. He channeled that. He turned it into something. He didn't hold on to it for the rest of his life and say he couldn't accomplish or couldn't do, or the reason why was because of his dad. He did not become the victim in this state. He let that empower him and push him to achieving his goals and his dreams and everything that he was trying to do. So that's one thing that I respect and I love about this book. About what he was saying was how he did not allow that to keep him in a space. He graduated from it. He healed from it. He forgave his dad, moved forward, and he allowed that pain and everything to push him to a better place, to where he became a complete beast. So that was one thing that I respected and I liked about this book. One of the things that Arnold talked about in this book, Be Useful, which I thought was wild. He talked about how he had to get surgery on his heart. It was supposed to be like a simple surgery, but the doctor ended up like puncturing his wall in his heart. Now, the exact wording to how it happened, I'm sure I'm not getting it exactly correct, but basically they messed up his heart during the surgery. So basically they had to cut his chest open to, do the surgery. And he was only supposed to be in there a certain amount of time, but he ended up having to stay way longer than he needed to be. And the reason why he couldn't stay like that, because he was trying to go shoot a movie. So they was like, look, you can't leave. You can't do this. He couldn't walk on his own. He couldn't go to the bathroom on his own. It was like he couldn't even breathe on his own. So he had to sit there for I believe it was a week or so. And he had to be out of there within 5 days. So he had the nurse write down everything that he needed to do on the board in his room. And so he can know what he needed to do, get out of there so he can make this deadline for this movie. So he said that he started walking on his own. He started pushing the workout. He started lifting weight. He started doing a bunch of stuff, trying to get himself prepared to get up out of that hospital because he could not sit there. So I think he had to stay there for 8 days. He ended up leaving in 5. He said he learned how to go to the bathroom on his own. He had to walk again on his own. And he was out there doing laps. And another person that I know that did something similar to that was my brother Zaire, because he got caught in a little situation where he had to go to the hospital. I'm not going to speak a lot of it, but he ended up beating the expectations of the doctors, because some of these guys just have a mindset that you are not going to tell me what I can and cannot do. And I'm going to show you, you can't stop me from what I'm doing. And that's one thing that I always respected about my brother. He always is the type where I can show you better than I can tell you. And that was the same thing with Arnold. So this dude had his chest, not my brother, Arnold. Arnold had his chest cut open with a draining bag, lifting weights on his way to a movie set. How wild is that, bro? How many people break an arm and don't want to move, or get a headache and can't be completely immobilized because they got a headache, or anything of that nature? So this is one thing that I thought was amazing in this book, and just showed you how much of a dog Arnold is. And that's something that I appreciate and like to hear. You feel me? Another thing that Arnold talked about and Be Useful was failing, and how important it is to fail, and how important it is not to give up. And he talked about the significance of it. And me and Wild always talk about this. And I keep telling y'all the same thing, because these are things that are part of my life. And we always talk about the importance of failing and not quitting and not giving up, and keep pushing and not having that victim mindset. And it was crazy, though, because he talked about how failing is just a progress report on what you need to repeat, what you need to fix and adjust to. That's all it is. That's all failing is. It's just a progress report. So that's one thing, in the gym, as you guys know, I'm training fighters. That's one thing I try to do. I try to push them to fail every day. So that next day, okay, I got to get better. Try to push to fail. So, okay, I can correct this, or push to fail. We try to push that limit as much as possible, because we can make these corrections while we still can. Because once you get in that fight, there's no corrections you can make. You can, but it's that time now. So you got to be much as prepared as possible. So one thing he said that I thought was dope was how WD-40 failed 39 times. And that's the reason why it's called WD-40, because it succeeded on that 40th try, which I thought was an amazing story. So, the main point is, don't give up. Keep pushing, push to fail, work to fail, so you can learn, you can grow, you can adjust, you can do whatever you need to do to become more complete and be that beast that you need to be. You feel me? Another dope story of this book that he talked about was how James Cameron didn't want him to be the hero in the book, but he wanted to be the hero. James Cameron wanted him to be the villain. And he was like, nah, I'm the hero. I'm not being no villain. I'm not the bad guy. I'm the hero. I'm the one that comes save the day. Blah, 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 blah. And James Cameron was like, nah, pimp, you the bad guy in this. And he was pissed. He didn't want to do it. He like, no. But him listening, the key word is listening, hearing him out and understanding where he was coming from, his perspective changed everything. Once he talked to James Cameron, once he sat down and he shut up and listened to what he was saying, he agreed. Like, okay, this will work. And he agreed to become the villain, and it turned out to be one of the greatest movies of all time, in my opinion. Even though I think part 2 was better, but that still was James Cameron. But he was the good guy in part 2. But part 1 it set the tone. And the significance of listening, having a broader vision and not being so narrow-minded, thinking you got it all figured out, thinking you know it at all. Because you always can learn. There's always ways to learn. There's always ways to adapt. There's always ways to grow if you're willing to listen up here and understand where other people was coming from. So that was just one thing that I thought was like a great part of this book, of how he adjusted, he listened, and he learned, and it turned out to be wildly successful for him just from listening. Okay, so the last thing in this book that I want to talk about, Be Useful by Arnold Schwarzenegger, he talked about building your community of people around you. He said that, and if anybody say it, he said, I'm going to believe it. He said, the people around you will make you way more happier than money ever will. And I know you hear that all the time, money don't buy happiness, blah, 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 blah. And I understand that when you ain't got it, that's all that matters sometimes, especially when you out here struggling, trying to figure it out. People counting on you. You got to be a provider. People depending on you. Sometimes that's a lot of our, especially as men, the only identity we have as a provider. So when that money is not there, sometimes you just feel useless and hopeless. And trust me, I understand, because I'm in a place right now where I'm trying to figure it out and trying to make everything work, where I don't have to go back to old things that I was doing. And it's extremely difficult. But I can tell you this, I am happy as I ever been in a long time right now, when I'm not just strictly chasing financial gains. And I know that's hard to hear. I know that's hard to see. And I know that's hard to think about. But he definitely spoke on that money is not everything. Like your community, the people around you, your family, and your support system will rank way higher than money ever will. And unfortunately, a lot of us will never learn that until we get money, or will never learn it, because some of us will never touch the amount of money that, he has. But it's still crazy hearing this coming from so many different successful people that's done it, that's been there, that's made the money, that your community and your family and your support system will always outrank money in any situation. This is Pito. I'm back with another book review. I appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all like, make sure y'all comment, make sure y'all subscribe. Tell me what y'all think. Tell me how y'all feel. Have y'all read the book Useful? Leave it in the comment section. Be Useful by Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I'm out. Appreciate you.